guys, and welcome back to my channel. Isn't it amazing we've gotten through 2 weeks of lockdown already? And I don't know about you, but it's actually not been too bad. I hope you guys have been staying well, staying active, staying healthy, staying happy. All this time we've had off though has really given me, and I'm sure a bunch of you, a lot of time to think. And what I've been thinking about is what I could have done differently over the course of year 11 to maybe make this situation a bunch of year 11s and year 13s are in right now a bit less anxiety provoking. As most of you guys know, the GCSEs and the A-level exams were cancelled, so what our grades are going to be based off of is going to be things like predicted grades, mock grades, test grades that you've gotten throughout like a period of time, and those for me have been mostly alright, and I feel alright about it. I feel happy about it. I am still a bit like, oh, I could have done better here, I could have done this here, I could have done that here. So this video is going to be me giving advice and tips, mainly to year 10s who are going into year 11, of what I wish I did or what I did and really worked to really ensure the success of you guys and to make sure that year 11 is as smooth as it possibly could be, because it is a really stressful, manic and short year. So it's good that you make the most of it and you make it one of your most productive and effective years. So without further ado, here are my 5 things that I wish I knew at the start of year 11 or what you should start doing from the start of year 11. Let's go. My number 1 is if you want to make notes, flashcards, mind maps, revision resources from topics that you've already done, start making them ASAP. You don't want to wait until Easter or till the half term during GCSEs to be making notes and making them look pretty and making them look nice. You should have done that earlier, preferably before your mocks maybe, with the stuff that you've already learned, because making notes, even though it's a great way for a lot of people to revise, I'm sure, and reading through your notes and flashcards especially, testing yourself on your notes, mind maps because of all like the information compressed, I'm sure it's really effective for a lot of you guys, but making them is time consuming. I found it took hours sometimes to make just one nice looking mind map, which is one of the many reasons why I personally didn't do it. But if that helps you and if you want those resources, then you need to make them as soon as possible so you don't waste your time making them, and instead you spend that time near your GCSEs on things like practice questions and practice papers and actually testing yourself instead of making the test, because making them is nowhere near as effective as actually using them. So if you want to make revision resources, and especially if you're one of those people who makes really nice looking notes, you should really make them as soon as possible so you can spend the time closer to your GCSEs actually revising for your GCSEs and not just making notes. Speaking of revision, my number 2 point is revise for your end of topic tests and revise for your mocks. A lot of my teachers would be like, girls, you shouldn't be stressing about your mocks. They're not that big of a deal. And I'm not saying you should stress about your mocks. They're nothing to be stressed about. You shouldn't stress at all during the GCSE period. You shouldn't stress yourself out because, like I said in my last video, stressing does nothing. But at the same time, those end of topic tests and those mocks are amazing revision opportunities. If you know you have an end of topic test next week, then you can actually structure revision throughout that week to revise for that test, and you can do it properly. For example, I had a test on organic chemistry and I had it the next week. So that week, I just spent little intervals going through that topic. You do half an hour a day of maybe practice questions from my CGP workbook or from practice questions online or from the textbook or anything like that. And for me, I then found that test so easy. I don't know why I didn't do that in the first place for all of my end of topic tests. And then when I went back to revise organic chemistry a few months down the line, I already had a bunch of that stuff in my head and it was just another refresher course for me. And then if I actually had my GCSEs and I went back to it again, it's like a refresher course of the refresher course, and by that point it's like second nature to you. So please revise for the end of topic tests because they're really good for forcing yourself to revise and setting yourself more structured deadlines than just, oh, I've got exams in May, so I'll revise at some point. If you know you've got an exam next week, right, I need to revise throughout the week so I can get a good mark next week. Again, with the mocks, it's similar, but also with the mock, especially if your school gives you study leave throughout your mocks, it's a very good simulation of the actual GCSE period, even though the mock period is a lot shorter. It's a good way of breaking yourself into how that works, and it's a good way of getting used to this very foreign structure of examinations. So it's a really good idea to take that period of time seriously, so then when the actual GCSEs roll around, it's not too much of a shock to you, and instead of focusing on the adjustments that you'll have to make in your daily life and adjusting to that, you can just focus on your revision, you can focus on your work, and you can get the best grades possible. And revising for your mocks gives you those predicted grades, and it gives you targets that you can then strive for. And if you know, oh, I didn't revise for this, so I'm sure I'll do fine next time, you don't actually know that, you're just assuming that. But if you revise as hard as you can and then you don't get the grade that you want, then you can take that time to step back and review and see what you did wrong and see what you can improve, and then your grade is bound to go up. So please revise for the assessments that you have throughout the year, and definitely revise for your mocks. My number 3 point is set hyper-realistic revision goals for yourself, or maybe in layman's terms, set low goals. Not in terms of grades. With grades, you want to aim high. You want to make sure that you aim as high as you can, and then that way you should be setting yourself up for success. But what I mean by setting low goals for yourself, I mean revision-wise. I hate it when people come up to me and are like, right, I'm gonna do 5 hours of revision when I get home, then I'm gonna eat my dinner, and then I'm gonna do 3 hours more of revision. No, you're not. And if you are, be honest, how many of those hours will actually be productive revision and not just you sitting there like, maybe check your phone. Personally, I procrastinate a lot, and if you told me that I had to go home and revise for 5 hours straight, you know I'm not gonna go home and revise for 5 hours straight. I'm gonna revise for 20 minutes, or I'm just not gonna sit down and open a book. Instead, just set half an hour, then I'm gonna have a break, and then I'm gonna do another half an hour, or maybe an hour, then a break, and then an hour, and then a break, and then maybe half an hour to finish. You don't need to revise for 5 hours to get the top grades. If you do half an hour of productive revision, that's so much more effective than 5 hours of just nothing. There's so much you can do in that half an hour. You can test yourself, you can do practice papers, you can do practice questions, you can do so much stuff in a half an hour burst or an hour burst, and it can still be really effective. Like I said, with my organic chemistry test that I had, I would just do half an hour of chemistry a day, and that was sufficient. So instead of setting unrealistic revision goals for yourself, just set realistic ones that you know you are going to follow, and be smart about it. Maybe make a timetable, maybe make some sort of structure to your day, embed it into the structure of your day. Trust me, it's so much better. My number 4 point is to make sure there's no gaps in your knowledge in each of your topics. For me, I found things like motors and solenoids really hard in physics. I didn't actually get what was going on. So during the lesson and after the lesson, I would have a CGP book out and I'd be reading through it again, or I'd have the textbook and I'll just be reading through it again and trying the questions again and again and again and again and asking my teacher stuff. And you really need to pester your teacher a little bit. If you don't get something, just be like, Miss or Sir, I don't get it, please explain this again, because they can't just leave you behind. And if they do leave you behind, you go home and you catch up yourself, or you talk to someone else, or you talk to one of your friends, because if you have those gaps and that ends up being a 6 marker on your test, then you won't be very happy about it. If you don't have any gaps in your knowledge in that particular topic, then what you can do is move on to the next topic and just skim through it. So then when you go over it again in class, then it's a bit more like revision to you. And then again, when you go back to your revision, it's like revision of revision. So then you can use that knowledge to do things like practice papers and practice questions. So really try and avoid gaps in knowledge in your topics, in your subjects. And if you really don't get something, please ask people, ask your teacher, ask your friend, ask anyone who might have any sort of knowledge on the subject. Google it, just make sure there's no proper gaps in your knowledge. Also remember that if you're feeling secure on that topic, then just feel free to move on to the next one before everyone else does. You shouldn't have to stay with the slower pace of your school if you're moving at a quicker pace. Read ahead and skim over it. You don't have to go into it in loads of detail. Just skim over it, so then when your teacher goes over it again, it will fill in any gaps that you might have had from your skimming, or it'll just be nice revision for you. It's perfect. So my number 5 point is something that I rarely see people say on the internet or say in school, and that is to make sure you stay on the good side of your teacher. So in my last point, I was talking about going to your teacher for help and pestering your teacher in lessons if you really don't get something. If you're on the good side of your teacher, they will see that potential in you, and then they will then go, okay, this person has potential, I won't give up on them. But if they think that you're not worth it, then they probably won't invest that same energy into you. If they don't see the potential in you, and there's 29 other kids in the class who have more potential in their eyes, obviously they're probably wrong, but in their eyes, if you don't have any potential, then they might just leave you behind, and then that might be detrimental to your success. Of course, you shouldn't just be relying on school, you should be relying on home knowledge and everything else, but school gives you that foundation knowledge, and it gives you most of the stuff you need in terms of knowledge and content. So if you don't get the content and your teacher's refusing to teach you, or they're not putting in their best of work to you because they don't think you're worth it and they don't think you deserve it, then that's just not great. By the way, this does not mean be a kiss up to your teachers. No one likes a class pet, but just give in your homework and make sure that you at least try and behave in lessons. Make sure you, whenever the teacher's looking, you're always paying as much attention as you can to the lessons. And then if you're revising for the end of topic tests, like I said before, that you're getting decent grades in their class and it looks like you're really putting in that effort, then that will go a lot further than you think it might. And if you, by any chance, are stuck in a global pandemic and the terrible predicted grades that your teacher has predicted you because they don't believe in you enough and they don't think you'll actually achieve well at GCSEs, that you thought didn't mean anything and you were told didn't mean anything, and now going to the government and being made as part of the official grade that you were given for your GCSE or A-level, and that will follow you for the rest of your life, and your teacher didn't like you enough to give you a decent predicted grade, and now that terrible predicted grade may factor into your actual GCSE or A-level grades, and that will follow you forever, and your teacher gave you terrible predicted grades. So guys, those are my 5 things that every year 10 I think should know before they go into year 11, and what I wish I was told at the beginning of year 11 myself. If any of these were helpful to you, please leave a like on this video because I would really appreciate it, and please subscribe to this channel if you want more of this kind of content. Share this video with a friend who might also find it helpful. Please share it with all the year 10s you know because they really deserve to hear this right now. If you have any other points, of course, leave them in the comments below. I hope you guys have a really good day, and I hope you're holding up well in this lovely time that we're going through right now, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.